And he warns the economic impact of these riots will be felt in 3 stages: immediate, intermediate, and long term. In what respect, Pierre, do you feel that will be?
Brian, it's good to see you. I think we can look back at 2020 for any anecdotal advice on how this should be handled. The immediate impact of this is that clearly foot traffic in any major city is going to plummet due to the result of these riots. Safety and the fear of unrest is going to prevent the workforce from coming back and drive out people from living in these cities. And what does that do? If you look back at all the images of 2020 in New York City, Minneapolis, Oregon, wherever you want to look, any major city, just imagine all the boarding up of the windows across those cities. What does that mean? That means these are businesses that are not operational. Your immediate impact: loss of cash flow, loss of revenue, which will mean loss of rent payments to your landlord, which will jeopardize landlords' ability to pay their mortgages. It's a continuously ripple effect that is disastrous for any local economy. So I think it's something that you always have to get a handle on. I mean, I'm not saying protest, have peaceful protests, right? That's your constitutional right. But what's going on in Los Angeles is absolutely asinine.
How about this? I mean, the Mexican flags, the Ecuadorian flags, burning the U.S. flag. You're trying to win over the American population that you're in the right here by waving the flag of another country. How many Americans do you think want to go to bat for Mexico?
It's such a tough thing because our country is such a large basis of our country is immigrants. This is a melting pot. One of the greatest things to say about America. My parents are immigrants, right? But right now you've had open borders for how many years? You've had an influx, and it's unsustainable. And you're seeing it now, right? I mean, the level of violence that's being permitted, we need to establish law and order back in society. I mean, what's going on should under no circumstances be allowed, regardless of what your feelings are on the immigration topic.
When you have taxes already so high, when you have devastating fires that wiped out one of the most the higher income families now have to pay on property and houses that don't even exist, then you wonder about insurance claims. They don't want to pay rich people, give rich people insurance, let alone working class people in a city that can't be controlled and won't be controlled because the LAPD, the local law enforcement's being held back.
The insurance industry is upside down, and it's the large uptick of natural disasters in the last couple of years are clearly the catalyst for that. But it is a real problem that we have in society. How are these businesses ever going to reopen? How are they going to establish, regain the lost income? The insurance companies are jacking up premiums in every line of insurance fathomable to make up for all the natural disasters. Now you're going to add this issue to the equation, which there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars of claims as a result of the riots, property damage, loss of revenue. Good luck getting paid. It's going to be a disaster. I feel bad for any small business owner that has their business in these cities.
I don't know how much longer it's going to start, going to continue, but Tom Homan was on, and he's just astounded by the fact that they're blaming the presence of federal forces and National Guard over what's happening locally. Here's what he said, cut 11.
And let's make this clear. I keep hearing this term ICE raids, ICE raids. What happened with how this riot started is that ICE was serving a series of criminal warrants at a business being investigated for money laundering, customs fraud, and serious violations on sending money to criminal cartels that in Colombia and Mexico that fund cartel activities in the United States. It's a part of an overall conspiracy that ICE is investigating. So we're arresting bad people. We were enforcing laws and following up on a serious criminal investigation on cartel financing. So that's exactly what ICE did. And ICE took a lot of bad people off the street that day.
So when that happens and you have a criminal element, the law enforcement's being held back, you have that sentiment, no faith in local leaders, that also hurts real estate prices, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely hurts real estate prices. Right now, look, we're 5 years post-pandemic. New York City, you can take, for example, right? My real estate law practice in Midtown Manhattan. The foot traffic here is nowhere near what it used to be pre-pandemic levels. Subway ridership is millions short of where it used to be pre-pandemic levels. And that's because of a fear for safety. So when you have that element of fear that's established in society, cities are the first region to suffer an economic detriment.
And you look at Minnesota, and you already gave me the stats here. More than a year after the Minneapolis riots, 5% of businesses damaged or destroyed returned. Only 5%. Downtowns may become more desolate. Minneapolis saw more than 50% reduction in foot traffic. You mentioned in New York, just over a pandemic we all experienced, but I also remember the defilement of storefronts and the looting that took place, which we just allowed to happen. So there are things that happen in this world, tsunamis and natural disasters, what happened in New Orleans. I get it. But this is man-made, this is man-caused disaster and preventable.
By the way, who's hurting the most from these riots? It's, again, small business owners and individuals in the middle class of America. I'll give you a great story. I remember during the riots in 2020, walking through the city in a bodega across the street from where I live, a poor guy, immigrant, crying outside his store. And I'm like, is this your store? Boarded up, police reports. What's a police report going to do 24 hours after a riot? The guy lost his whole life savings, worked his whole life. An immigrant that came to this country, worked his whole life, opened up this business, and rioters destroyed it. What did you gain by destroying this poor man's business? What is the benefit of this, right? Like, that's the problem. You're not hurting big government. You're not hurting major corporations. In reality, you're hurting the little guy. For the most part, these retail spaces in these cities, a lot of them are mom and pop stores, and it's a real shame because you're taking away these people's livelihoods.
Lastly, the blue cities are where this is happening. I mean, there is no sanctuary in a red state or a red city. So it's the sanctuary policies where this is happening. And no one's flourishing. Crime's an issue. The economy's an issue. They're all overdrawn. They've all spent way too much. We also know that's where illegal immigrants go to get free stuff, whether it's free healthcare in California or free residence and free food over in New York City. We'll set up a tent city for you and give you a menu. So these are the ones that are hurting. And these policies are proving detrimental to your economic welfare.
Well, you bring up New York City. Mayor Adams, famously touted New York City as a sanctuary city. And then we had hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of migrants come to the city with no idea what to do with them. We had the famous Roosevelt Hotel in Midtown Manhattan that was a migrant shelter for several years. And somehow overnight, once Trump was elected, Mayor Adams worked with him to have everybody silently removed from that facility. The city in New York has been operating a significant deficit on an annual basis and spending billions of taxpayer dollars to address this migrant crisis. Economically speaking, these cities can't afford this, right? I mean, you've had a loss of revenue from the departure of high-income earners from New York, loss of office, attendance, which is resulting in a lack of economic stimulus for the city in terms of people being here and spending and contributing to the local economy, yet we're spending more money. So I just pure economics of this. This is why we have immigration laws, to be able to control the volume of people that come into the country and to conduct background checks. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say every single illegal immigrant's a criminal, but that is the purpose of why we have immigration laws: control the volume of people and to conduct background checks to see who's coming in this country. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with either of those two aspects.
But yet this leader, like Governor Gavin Newsom, wants to sue. Listen to this, cut 7.
Donald Trump has created the conditions you see on your TV tonight. He's exacerbated the conditions. He's, lit the proverbial match. He's putting fuel on this fire ever since he announced he was taking over the National Guard. An illegal act, an immoral act, an unconstitutional act, and we're going to test that theory with a lawsuit tomorrow.
There you go. Is that going to help?
Hey, look, I think that could be fathomably under control after seeing the images of people waving flags, burning cars, throwing rocks at the police department. It's complete lunacy. I mean, there is no control in any of these riots. I don't see how anybody can argue that the National Guard was mandatory to help stabilize things.
All right. Thanks so much, Pierre DeBas. Thank you so much, attorney, real estate expert, managing partner. Appreciate it, Pierre.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
All right, you got it.